Joining me in the studio is Hassan Ahmadian. He's an associate professor at the University of Tehran, and Sultan Barakat, professor of public policy at Hamad bin Khalifa University here in Qatar. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for being with us. Sultan, I want to come to you first of all. One of the key elements that Osama picked up on there and seemed to be a central theme of this press conference was the regional security. The Qatari Foreign Ministry spokesperson described it as being broken in this war. It is clear that there's going to be a very large reassessment by the Gulf nations of not only the partnerships that they have in terms of defence, but also the capabilities that they have within for defence as well.
Absolutely. I mean, in the press conference, which I thought was extremely articulate and balanced, and within the international framework of what is expected of a proper briefing, I think, he has made it clear that there's been all sorts of security arrangements. He implicitly referred to the Turkish alliance, and now we know that Turkish forces are working jointly with the Qataris. We also know that the British are working also jointly with the Qataris. There is a joint squadron protecting Doha. Also, of course, the Americans are present, and the situation has probably worked its way so far. But he also made a very interesting, I think, reference to escalation since 2023. And that makes me wonder, what is it he's referring to? What's been going on since 2023? And the only thing I can think of is 7th of October and the way Israel has normalized a lot of these aggressions across the region, including the targeted assassination of political and military leaders. We haven't seen this before at the scale that Israel has made it happen. Also, if you go beyond that, from 2016 onwards, under the first term of Trump, Israel is the new boy in the block, that entered the region through normalization with some Arab states, the Abrahamic Accords, joint intelligence, etc., etc. And now we can see the impact of that. That first, the Gulf states were left out of the decision to go to war. And now we understand from his briefing that they're also left out of the decision of ending the war. They've not been part of any discussion. They're not mediating. They heard about it like everyone else from the news. And that doesn't really serve a joint security agenda for the Gulf as a whole and for the individual Gulf countries. So it's inevitable that they will be looking to review this. In fact, last June, some revision has already started. Saudi Arabia reached out to Pakistan to establish that relationship. United Arab Emirates reached out to India. So some countries are already thinking of alternatives. But I think as far as Qatar is concerned, his message really was to try and reassure the people of Qatar, both citizens and residents, that we have the capability to defend ourselves. We don't need, although we reserve the right to retaliate, we don't really need to retaliate, given our knowledge of the history, the politics, and the size of Iran. And for now, we must do our best to go back to normality. And for them, normality is really, really important. Qatar, unlike all the other Gulf states, has very little alternative to export its energy to the rest of the world. The liquid gas is a very sophisticated industry, requires extremely expensive terminals on both ends. And they have no other alternative. They can't pipe it across elsewhere. They can't carry it on trucks like some of the oil can be smuggled from Iraq into Turkey and so on. So for them, I think a feel of normality is important. Going back to productivity is important. And I think they're banking on Iran understanding all of this. And with their control of the Strait of Hormuz, they've already given signals that they would allow some of the LNG shipment to cross.
I would have put some of those points to Hassan because it seemed from the press conference that Qatar is already looking ahead to the end of the war and what is going to happen in terms of its relationships with Iran. He said Iran has been here for millions of years. so have we. He said nobody is going anywhere. Clearly, that there has to be some sort of understanding that is going to be met. He said we will live next to each other, we will be neighbours, we'll have to find a way of living next to each other. But he was implying that the onus is on Iran to rebuild the trust with its Gulf neighbours. That is going to be a very large hurdle for Iran to be able to achieve. Is there any indication about how it might be able to do that?
Well, I think his points on Iran were rather balanced, though he criticized Iran's attacks, but still he talked about ways that should be thought of to remedy, because we have to live together. I think that, though doesn't agree, but rhymes with what Iranian officials have been trying to convey time and time again from the beginning of the war, that we are not attacking our neighbors. We're attacking the infrastructure that is being used against us. Now, there's a bit of controversy there that both officials, I think Iranian and Qataris, are not trying to get into, but I think that's a starting point for a serious discussion on security and cooperation moving forward. I think the particularity of Qatar and Oman is no secret when it comes to Iran's connection with GCC countries. These two countries have been the closest to Iran. Yet Qatar was attacked a lot. And the Iranian talking point is that, well, there is the Al Udeid base, one of the main bases the US uses directly or indirectly against Iran. And that's the source of this tension, according to Iranians. Now, the Qataris have their own narrative, of course, but I think that particular relationship could have preserved Qatar out of this fray had it not been for Al Udeid, just as in Oman case. So that distinction, when it comes to reality on the ground, I think is very clear in Iran's strategic behavior during this war. And also it speaks to Iran's priorities. The country and its leaders have been speaking about them being under existential threat. Now we have a precedent in which if Iran is under existential threat, how could it react? And that also provides a strategic, understanding of how to deal with such a scenario moving forward, which I think can be beneficial to the region if they can really come together and discuss future security architecture in the region.
Just very quickly, while I have you here, Hassan, we've only got about a minute, but I do want to bring up the fact that Iran is apparently saying that it has now replaced Ali Larijani as the head of the National Security Division within Iran. We've, as I say, only got about 50 seconds, but what do you think that message is sending by having that transition being made?
No power vacuum. That's the main message. Mr. Dhul Qadr was working with Mr. Ali Larijani in different capacities in the IRGC and outside the IRGC. He's a very known person, very much similar to Mr. Larijani himself in terms of having good connections with all circles of power within the country. So he's I think, proper replacement for Mr. Ali Larijani to say to the world that there is no power vacuum in the country.
Gentlemen, I appreciate you being with us. Thank you very much indeed. Hassan Ahmadian and Sultan Barakat. Thank you very much.